Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Monday, the 20th of September. I'm Derek Clark and I'm joined this morning by Jonny McFarlane. How are we doing, Jonny?
Very good, mate. Very good. Looking forward to the day ahead. Had a day off yesterday with my small child, so I'm glad to be back at work.
Yeah, as ever, talking all things Rangers. What could be better than that? Just before we continue, folks, just a reminder, the little ticker below, we've got that great offer on the website just now. Got to tell you, so many of you taking advantage of it. So thank you very much for doing so. It's just £1 for 2 months worth of content. We're practically giving it away. And you'll find loads on there, all to do with Rangers. So go and check it out. I've stuck the link in the comments section as ever. So yeah, go and have a look when you can. Right, let's talk Rangers, Jonny. The first thing I think we should touch on is an interview that John Bennett has given to Rangers TV this morning. I'd urge you to go and check it out, folks. Lots of interesting takeaways from it. It's a 17-minute interview. Now, first, what he gets asked about the football department, and he calls it 2 unacceptable performances against Ajax and Celtic. There's he says it has to be better than that. He goes on to say that Rangers, they can't dwell on their success. At the same time, they can't dwell on failure. He talks about the new signings, Jonny. It touches on Yilmaz, mentions him specifically, saying he's not going to judge a player in the first 5 weeks or 5 months of his Rangers career. They signed him for 5 years for a reason. He name-checked Calvin Bassey as a player who there was a lot of negative noise surrounding his match against St Mirren in the Cup, if you can remember back then, back in the League Cup, remember. And he says he's went on and obviously won his big money move, and he says he's represented Rangers impeccably both on and off the pitch. But he does accept that there's a bit of negativity around the club at the moment. Jonny, you've had a little watch of the interview. What did you what was your main takeaways from it?
Well, yeah, I sense that people are not altogether too happy with the interview, and there's a number of reasons why. Guys, if you're not happy with it, please get these into the comments and we can kind of address them. I think there were, in terms of like facts that came out of it, there was a number of things I think are worth looking at. £23 million worth of capital expenditure has been spent by the club. Now, he didn't go into the detail of what that is, and hopefully we can drill down into that in the coming days. Now, I'm assuming that will be Edmiston House and the training ground where significant work has been done, and obviously the roofs as well in terms of Ibrox. So there has been a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and it's kind of the first time that's been properly addressed in detail. £23 million is a lot of money. It's a lot of money for Rangers to be spending on the internal structures of the club, and hopefully that's something that will allow the business side to see a real benefit in the years to come. I think the fact that he name-checked Yilmaz and talked about the new signings that have come in, and the point that he makes is absolutely valid. It's too early to judge these players as successes or failures in 20th of September. It absolutely is. We saw what happened with John Lundstrom last season. We've seen what's happened with Borna Barisic, previously with Mark Hateley, and absolutely, he's spot on. It is too early. We can look at what they've done so far, and it's not good enough so far, but you can't write them off. These players have been scouted properly, you would hope, and there is certainly enough talent there for them to come in and be good Rangers players from what we've seen so far. So I think that's fair enough and a point well made. In terms of the squad, he says it's the best squad that has been at Ibrox in his time. He uses Connor Goldson as an example of that. Connor Goldson said that. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst said he's happy with it. I think that's right, to be honest, but you need to have all the players fit, So the 55 squad had a fit Hagi and Roof and a fire in Morelos.
Yeah.
That all those players are still there, but there's various question marks and issues. So in terms of sheer numbers and the names on paper, absolutely, but football doesn't work like that. So as John Bennett himself says, we'll judge that at the end of the season, and that will be either proven correct or not. And finally, I think the clear element that the club are saying that they are going to look at is communication going forward. I think that's really about the board themselves coming out and being more visible, as opposed to, dealing with the media or whatever. I think that's what it's about. And in terms of that, I think the key thing is this figure of 100 million that's been floated around, I think especially in certain places, and 40 million for qualifying for the Champions League. Now, listen, at the Rangers Review on the website, guys, we've been trying to give you the actual facts for this for weeks, and it's difficult because every story goes out, 40 million pound jackpot, 40 million pound war chest, 40 million pound, it's just not accurate. It's headline figures, and it's miles off. And as I say, like, we had articles before Rangers even qualified for the Champions League. Derek, you did a deep dive on what could be earned from the Europa League and what could be earned from the Champions League. And actually, there wasn't that much difference. It was between 8 and 10 million pounds difference between Europa League and Champions League. And given it looks like Rangers aren't going to win many games in the Champions League, that figure would be even less, because you'd imagine that they'd have got, maybe 9 points in the Europa League, which starts to tally up in terms of the finances of what you get as prize money.
Yeah.
So I think he's got a valid point on that. As kind of expectations have been raised by a sloppiness around these figures, but at the same time, he himself admits, and it's a valid criticism that's been placed by many people, is that the board haven't stepped in and said, well, this is wrong. Here's where we are. Here's how it looks. Here's the picture. And I'm hoping that in the second part of this video, there's a bit more detail in terms of that stuff, because I think that's what the fans want, a bit more detail. As for the tone of it and things like that, the fans themselves are better to say how they individually reacted. John Bennett is a die-hard Rangers fan who only wants the best for the club. And perhaps it's just natural, if he feels like he's being criticised, that he comes out and explains his side of things. And I don't mind that at all.
No.
And it's up for people to make their own mind. I think it's clear the fact the club have put initially the video on Rangers TV and then put it out later on YouTube. I think it was only up for 2 hours on Rangers TV and then it was on YouTube. Shows that perhaps they made an error in not making it free to air. But the whole point of Rangers TV is that you put up interviews and things like that from within the club. So I can understand as well why they've done that. But it's good that they did address it, because it's an important interview that fans should be able to see, regardless of their circumstances, regardless if they have the $5.99 subscription to Rangers TV or not.
Yeah, Kenny Smith touches on that. He says only making the interview available behind a paywall is a big mistake. Yeah, I think that they have changed that now, Kenny, and it now is free to view. But some of the comments...
on YouTube.
On YouTube. Some of the comments coming in that are negative. The tone here, Ryan Stewart says that the tone of the interview is quite incredible, really, about as condescending as you can get. So he's not buying it. Other comments...
Can I just say something on that? I think I understand where people are coming from with that. I just think it's difficult because different people have different levels of appreciation of the facts as they stand. Personally, like, I had to go out and get Kieran Maguire to write a piece on Rangers finances because I just don't feel capable, Derek, of accurately and properly, writing a piece that uncovers and encapsulates everything that's going on. I mean, you really need someone who's an expert in finances. Kieran Maguire is an accepted independent football finance expert. And I think the piece that we had on the Rangers Review that's still up there on the website is the best piece that's been written about Rangers finances and certainly in recent months, if not years. And I suppose what they're trying to do is they're trying to present complex ideas in a way that as many people as possible can just understand and comprehend. So it's a difficult balance to strike, because some people you're talking to are PhD level, and some people are, find it more difficult to understand that kind of information. So you've got to find a middle ground somewhere.
Yeah, and it's a good point that you mentioned there, Kieran Maguire. Johnny, David Penny says it was a very good read from the football guy, finance expert. Problem is, folk can't accept. I think he means there the situation. Ross was a fan of the interview. Says it's controversial. I really like John Bennett. I think he's honest in the interview. Listen, he's a Rangers fan. I'm sure he was hurting like everyone else. And he mentioned those two unacceptable performances against Celtic and Ajax. It needs rectified. I did touch on the Napoli performance. He says it was much more like a Rangers performance, although the result isn't what we wanted. Hugh says, what interview you're talking about here? It's the one from John Bennett. Hugh, he's given an interview to Rangers TV. It's available on their YouTube channel. If you search it on YouTube for Rangers, and there'll be a breakdown of the big talking points and what he said on the Rangers review site as well later on this morning. So stay tuned for that. Anything else you wanted to touch on that interview before we talk about the weekend, Johnny?
Yeah, just one thing, mate. Just I know we need to talk about the weekend because we weren't on obviously yesterday, given it was the events that were happening with Her Majesty the Queen and her funeral. So just this one there, Johnny, you're missing the ticket income with these games, and that's close to 8 million. Stuart, there's a huge difference between ticket income and actual profit made in these circumstances. I'm led to believe that Rangers can pay as much as, if not more than, £500,000 just to put these games on. That's how much it costs: policing, stewarding, food, lights, electricity, the whole shebang in a Champions League. You've got to remember, the whole stadium is taken over by UEFA. There's a lot of things that have to go into paying for it. So you might think, yeah, they make £2 million in revenue, but there's significant money coming off the other end. So I think thinking about kind of top line revenue figures and just kind of adding it all together, it's not an accurate way of looking at it. The best way to kind of address that will be by having a look at the accounts, but it's not as straightforward as just looking at whatever the price of a ticket is and then times it by 50,000. There's a lot of detail that goes on. And listen, that's accounted for. That's actually already in the books because the Europa League is budgeted for. So you're expecting to fill out Ibrox. Of course, they'll be able to charge a little bit more, as we saw for Champions League games, because of the level of opposition and the glamour of the event. But it's kind of already. It's not really a bonus, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. And being in the Champions League actually claws an awful lot of that money back in terms of the things that have to go into it and the spending Rangers have to do to make the event to Champions League standards.
Yeah, an interesting point here as well, raised by a good friend of the show, Denzel. He says, can't help but think the video is the first effort by the board to appease fans prior to the AGM. That's an interesting one. The AGM is certainly going to be interesting when it comes around. I think it's November time, I think is when it takes place. So, listen, lots of big talking points. And just a reminder, folks, John Bennett is giving an interview to Rangers TV. It is available on the Rangers YouTube channel, so do go check it out. Now, let's talk, Johnny, about the weekend. Performance-wise, Rangers, I said in my piece prior to the game, they needed to give the fans a bit of belief that they were out this slump and they were back to firing in all cylinders. That didn't materialise. They got the result, which is, of course, the main thing in these matches, but left more questions than answers. However, the events that took place in Paisley the following day has certainly lifted the mood, you'd have to say, but it doesn't disguise the fact that there is issues with regards to Rangers on the pitch that need addressed ahead of what will be a very difficult trip to Tynecastle when they return from the international break.
Yeah, listen, Derek, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst said after the game, and I have to say, some of the quotes that he gave to BBC Scotland, as I was putting them out, I thought these are not going to be popular. Because he was saying, like, anything can happen in the league. He was asked if he was confident his team could win the league. He said, anything could happen. I thought that doesn't sound on paper confident. Although he didn't sound tentative about it. It was just, I think it's because English is maybe his second language, and he was answering the question in the moment. But then he was proved absolutely correct when anything did literally happen. And I don't mean that in disrespectful to St Mirren, because I thought they played really well, and that's four games out of 5. They've had a clean sheet, and I think they've won 4 out of 5 as well. But nobody expected Celtic to win that, to lose that game yesterday. Stephen Thompson, former Rangers and St Mirren player, was on BBC Scotland, and he was asked, did he expect it? And he said he spoke to his little kid before the game, and his kid said to him, "What do you think the score's going to be today, Dad?" And he said, 2-0. If we can get away with a 2-0, I'll be happy. Of course, he was talking about 2-0 defeat. So if a sort of St Mirren legend is saying that they would have been happy with a 2-0 defeat and being open with that, you can see where the surprise is coming from. And it certainly puts Rangers in a much better position going into this break. It's been a poor spell. You can't sugarcoat it. It's been dreadful. And the game against Dundee United was really poor. They took the foot off the gas after the second goal. They took the foot off the gas after the first goal, to be honest. But second goal really did slow it down. And, you know, it was a bit unprofessional. It was a bit sloppy. And the stadium was rightly getting a little bit nervous, a bit tentative at what they were seeing. And especially after Dundee United got the goal, which, by the way, I thought was poor goalkeeping by Alan McGregor after his unbelievable performance against Napoli. 0.14 XG shot, rising to 0.17 after it struck. Means a keeper saving that more than 4 times out of 5, and it goes in. It didn't look good. There was no angle that made Alan McGregor look specifically bad. There wasn't a directly behind it angle, but it looked like it just spun up off his foot or his leg.
Yeah,
it should have got there, and it made things a little bit more nervous than they needed to be. But again, it was a bit slow. It was a bit pedestrian. And I can see why fans are getting a bit fed up by the style. It just needs to be a lot more aggressive, a lot more up and at him. I don't understand what Giovanni Van Bronckhorst is doing with Alfredo Morelos, Derek. I can't for the life of me get my head around it. It's actually infuriating me that Alfredo wasn't put on for half an hour in that game. It was just exactly what was needed. You know, to get the time on the pitch to show what he can do and get some more minutes under his belt. Especially after being thrown in for the previous game when I thought he performed excellently. Now, listen, Čolak has done brilliantly, mate. And I'm not... There's no way a criticism at Antonio Čolak. He's been sensational. He's been everything that we thought he would be and more. He's ideal for these sort of games. But I still think you need to have Morelos fit and firing, you know, at his best. He's still going to be now going away to have a couple of weeks where he's not getting any football. I think he needs more game time and he needs to be brought in. Yeah. Conversely, as Curry Muncher's saying, Kent, well, actually, he's not saying this, but I disagree with him on this. I think Kent needs a wee spell out. I would have played Sakala on the left, against Dundee United. Kent looks like a guy whose confidence is shot, and we know he's a confidence player. So I'd have given him a wee spell out and brought in Sakala, who brings goals and assists, even though he can be frustrating at
times.
He's
just not Gio's player, though, Johnny, is he? He's that that chaotic sort of nature to him. I think he's just a player that you bring on when you're trying to see out a game or you're chasing a game.
Yeah, the thing that's weird about that, Derek, can I put this back to you, is just why did Gio not sell him then when there was interest in from Burnley? And Burnley came and said, would you be interested in doing a deal? And they said no.
Yeah. That's certainly one for the coaching staff, I guess, to answer. But they certainly want him around as a squad player. But I agree with you. I think Kent, he should have been brought out of the team a few weeks ago. I think I've struggled to think the last time he really had a right good game for Rangers. It remains to be seen. Lots of improvement is needed with that current group of players. But the gap is just 2 points, which is quite something considering the negativity and the negative noise around Rangers since the start of the season. You've got to say, Johnny, to just 2 points behind, and if that performance from Willie Collum, that sending off for John Lundstram at Easter Road was rectified at the time, they would have been sitting level. So it's time to take stock. Hopefully they come back from the international break recharged, re-energised, and they can take on Hearts. And it's an opportunity, of course. It is the first game up on Saturday, the 1st of October. An opportunity is there to go top of the league once again. And you just hope that the players have the fire in the belly to take that opportunity. We'll just finish up. Aldo says, can we just take a moment to admire Derek's mohawk? Just the way it's sitting after. I got a haircut just at the tail end of last week, and I never managed to sort it before today.
Travis Bickle over here.
I've got a Morelos 2018 style do, I think, Johnny. But yeah, so we'll wrap up there, folks. Thanks to everyone for getting in touch with the programme as ever. It really is much appreciated. Just a reminder again, we've got that offer on the website, just £1 for 2 months worth of content. Head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe for all the details. We'll be back again tomorrow, but until then, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.